Today we have a special guest, someone that I'm really excited to hear more of their story. They share some of their jewels and some of the things they've been able to do post incarceration to make them the boss they are today. This guest actually does a lot. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you, is involved in a lot of different things. She's empowering women in her day job. She's also you could catch her on a docu series. Is a published author, as well as a podcast host and a distinguished individual who I am very pleased to have on the show. I had an opportunity to hear this individual at a event earlier this year, in which case I just learned a lot. It was an awesome event, but we're not here for that. What we're here today is to hear TJ's story. And so TJ's going to drop some jewels. She's going to share some of her story, how she found herself incarcerated, but most importantly, how she bossed up and became the boss she is today. And so, with no further ado, let's welcome TJ to the show. Welcome, TJ.
Thank you so much, Trent, for having me. It's truly an honor. I knew when you asked me to be a part of this, there was no doubt in my mind. So happy about the work you're doing. I'm proud of you, black men. Like, keep up the great
Nah,
work. We need examples like you in our
nah, I
community. So
appreciate
thank
that. And we need examples like you, though, because I personally feel like the females who are incarcerated are like the forgotten population a lot of times because it's a male dominated situation. But there's so
you.
many
Absolutely.
females that do end up in there, and we need to share their stories and highlight where they are today and how they got there. And so that's why I'm really excited to have you on today. And so, just to dive right in, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know we know, just so you guys know, we're talking to a Brooklyn night, so you know what that's going to look like. It's going to be a lot of BK love. But tell us a little bit about you, your upbringing, and then kind of tell us what led to your incarceration.
Sure. So I'll give you some brief points, and then you can touch on what it is you want me to elaborate on some more. If that works.
That
I
works.
started getting into trouble, I'd say, in my teens. I'd
Hmm.
say because of a home that was, I suffered from parents who had mental illnesses. So my
Hmm.
mother had narcissistic personality disorder. She's a covert narcissist, so it's a little hard
Hmm.
to identify. And so as a child, I didn't receive a lot of love. I didn't receive a hug, no validation, didn't
Hmm.
think I had any value. In fact, she gaslighted me to think that something was wrong with me.
Hmm.
Spent several years in several
Hmm.
different institutions, mental institutions, foster care, RTCs, group homes, you name it. Ended up
Hmm.
being in juvenile justice system as a result of being around those kids. What's interesting about my story is that I come from an upper middle class family. Both sides of my family, no one had ever been incarcerated or institutionalized. But because of the dynamics of my family and the dysfunction within my home, I found myself in these bizarre situations, right? And so I know now today that it was on purpose, it was for a purpose. I know that God used me as a vessel to learn this demographic of people so that I
Check
could
that.
reach back and serve, right?
Hmm.
My parents were really big on image, and so I did get a quality education. I grew up in Jamaica before the age of 7, and so
Ah.
I got like a British education there. And then when I came here, I was in private schools. And so I was intelligent enough to know that something wasn't right about my home,
Hmm.
the way that they were treating me and the way that they were abusing me. For example, I've been electrocuted, I was locked in a room, all kinds of
Sheesh.
craziness that you would watch on a Lifetime movie.
Hmm.
But nevertheless, I ended up running away, ended up getting myself into trouble, which ultimately led me into federal prison. I'll let you take the mic from here, but federal
Ooh.
prison is kind of where I started finding myself.
That's heavy. And I think a lot of our listeners honestly could relate to some of the upbringing and have a lot of shared experience. One thing you said was your mother was like a narcissist. Can you kind of identify what that looks like in a female? Because we hear it really referred to men a lot of times. What does that look like for a kid growing up with a mother who would be considered a narcissist?
Sure, that's a really good question. It's extremely hard to identify, firstly. My mom was a teacher and educator. They usually
Mm,
perform very well because they don't like to take accountability. So they're perfectionists. It's very hard to catch them
mm,
slipping. Another thing that they like to do is be praised. So they create dynamic where they are the center of attention. They may do this through victimhood, or they may always feel like create scenarios to always need protection.
mm,
My dad was that person for her. Another way that you can identify narcissism is they create triangulation. So triangulation looks like confusion. So they recruit
mm,
people to be on their side. So
mm,
there's actually a psychological term called flying monkeys. So what narcissists do is recruit people to they enroll people in their belief, and they convince those people to help attack their target. So once
mm,
their target starts to figure out that they're being abused, they then have backing. So that's what is keeping the person in a submissive state or in an oppressed state because they don't understand what's happening because it's like a gang of people against them. In
right.
my situation specifically, my mother recruited my father and my brother. So
Mm,
I had everyone in my immediate family against me, telling me something's wrong with you, you're crazy, you're doing stuff that was not happening. And in turn, I started to question my own reality.
that's powerful. Saying some of the things you say, I think I might have grew up in a similar situation. That's why I really wanted to get a little breakdown. So I appreciate that. So
No
now,
problem.
you go. So you say you went through little some foster homes. You were in like youth detention centers, and then ultimately ended up in the feds. Can you talk to that because I think that's a very common trajectory for individuals who grow up in the system. Some would even say that's how that starts with like becoming what is it becoming dang, I can't think of the word, it's slipping my mind, but
Like a
institutionalized,
statistic?
and it could start at a
Okay,
young age, you know. And so can you kind of talk to that trajectory and then what exactly landed you in the feds?
sure. So it is a pipeline. The
Hmm.
docuseries that I am in is Preschool to Prison, and it talks about how the educational system targets marginalized communities for prison from a
Hmm.
very early age, more particularly through suspensions. And
Mm.
so, no one in my family has ever been incarcerated.
Hmm.
I'm the first to be incarcerated, yet now my son has been incarcerated. I was never suspended from school, but
Mm.
both of my children have been suspended from school. And so, for me, it starts off as trauma in childhood. Usually, these kids are having challenges in the home or in the family, or maybe something has happened to this child, and they don't feel safe enough to express it. And
Hmm.
so, the behavior is the indication that they're this child is in need of services.
Right.
But adults are not properly equipped to handle these children. They don't know how to respond to the intimidating behavior. And so they
Right.
ostracize these children. They separate them. They don't make them feel wanted or valued for
Mm.
in some ways, in many ways, which ultimately leads to more negative behavior because that's where they're getting affirmed. That's where they're getting the attention. That's where
Right.
they're feeling wanted. For example, with gangs, right? We think it took a lot for me to understand why I was in prison. There was
Mm.
a time where I thought I should have been in prison until I started to do more research and expose myself to more information and more
Yep.
people who could mentor me and really help me break down what this thing is. And the moment I got into foster care, the moment I did not have parents, the moment that I didn't have the proper mentorship and guidance as a youth, I was already losing. And
Facts.
so the lack of programming, the lack of mentorship, the lack of a safe space
Mm.
is only going to harbor more negative behavior. And here I
Right.
was, a kid who was highly intelligent, being exploited by the streets.
Mm.
Right? They wanted me to do their plan because I was quick. I was able to
Yep.
do things that they probably didn't have the education or capacity to do. And so
Mm.
slowly but surely, I kept getting recruited. I kept getting recruited Started off with boosting, then it
Mm,
started getting into the scamming. Obviously a man introduced me to this life. So,
mm,
I don't have a father in my life. So that's
mm.
another dynamic. And so it's a collective of things
Agreed.
that
Yep.
causes someone to ultimately end up in prison. Another thing that I realized is that the foster care system is not a large demographic in comparison to the entire population nationally,
Mm,
but it's a large portion of the people who are imprisoned. And
mm,
so
mm.
if you cross reference, that's not by accident,
Not at all.
right? So the
Not at
first
all.
part of my healing came with awareness. Why did this happen to me?
Mm, mm. That's real. And so now, how much time did you end up having get sentenced to?
I ended up doing 59 months for access device fraud. It's a fancy way of saying credit card fraud.
Gotcha. Fancy way of saying credit card fraud. And so you mentioned your transformation began in prison. What did that look like?
Okay, so my transformation didn't come like most people's transformation. I actually didn't do anything productive in prison. When I got to prison,
That's
when I got
real.
to prison, I was young. I was in my
How
20s.
old were
I,
you?
I was 23.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
I was 23. I was pregnant,
Mm,
and I'd given birth behind bars, right? And I was
mm.
angry. I was angry because I didn't feel like I deserved that. And it caused
Absolutely.
me to want to rebel in whatever
Hmm.
way or capacity I could without being really abused by like correction officers.
Right.
And so I got into a lot of fights. I stole from the kitchen. I hustled.
Hmm.
I write about it in my book. I was making hooch. I was getting into all the
Mm,
stuff that I never even knew existed. The moment I figured it out that I could make a couple dollars from it, I immersed myself in it. And
yep.
when I think back, it wasn't even because I really wanted to do that. It was because
Mm,
I had no guidance again from at a young age,
yep.
not the correct mentorship, no one to call that's going to really tell me, hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you study this? Why don't you read this? It took for me to bump my head a lot. I ended
Hmm.
up going to the shoe often, and which is why I named
Damn.
my book is symbolism. A black girl in orange is symbolism for the shoe, solitary confinement. And so through those months, I spent several instances with months at a time in a concrete box, right? Sitting with my thoughts. And that's when I started to realize the stuff in my childhood. Like my mother's, no, there's something wrong with my family. It's not me. I
Mm,
started to realize, had I had different people around me, I might have made better decisions. I started to think like, this is not worth it. I'm so much more than
mm,
my
hmm.
circumstances. And it was in those instances of bump in my head that I found myself.
Mm. Now, so you're about 22 when you go in, or 23. So you get out around 26. I'm assuming somewhere around there.
I did 5 years.
Oh,
So
5 years. All
I
right. All
was
right.
28.
28. So you went in a little kid, essentially a young woman, and you came out a grown woman. Like, and so, some of the things you shared about being in the shoe, and one thing that came to my front of mind as soon as you said that is sitting still. Like that was probably a moment, like you said, where you're able to sit still and just be in your thoughts. And I hope those tuning in catch that jewel. The importance of just sitting still at times and allowing yourself the freedom to think. Like the world has so much noise out here. There's so much going on. People on their social medias, your family, work, all of those things. There's so much noise. And oftentimes we need to just sit still and allow ourselves to think. Like that can open up your whole world. And so now you're released. You get out, 28 years old. What happened next?
So I had a lot of trauma with my family, my immediate family. I've been married, and I don't want to give away my book, so I can't really tell you too much about that.
Gotcha,
But
gotcha.
I was on a rampage. I was angry.
Mm,
I had a lot of fights. When I
mm,
tell you God really had his hand on me, I could have been back behind bars. But during that process, it was like I had unrealistic expectations crossing over, transitioning into freedom, right? He's like, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I'm good. I got this. I'm about to go make money. I'm about to get a job.
Yep.
You know, you have high expectations of what society is going to meet you with. And then I crossed over, and that wasn't the case. I had been traumatized in ways that I didn't even understand. And so it took for me to engage with people, and I saw that people would say, "Why are you so aggressive? Was you trying to fight me?" And I'd gotten so used to that kind of verbiage, right? In prison, it's like really an animalistic environment.
Yeah, that's a
People don't
fact.
know how to talk to people. Tantrums are appropriate.
Yep.
You can really do whatever you want to do, but that's
Mm.
not how society is set up. And so there was no training, there was no awareness, there was no book, there was no
Yep.
warning, there was no, hey, you need to prepare for some hardships,
Hmm.
right? Yes, it was hard to be incarcerated, but it's extremely hard to transition.
That's a fact.
But thankfully, I was always a prayer warrior, even through all of my
Mm.
struggles. And I asked God for tools. I asked God for wisdom. I said,
Mm.
Lord, I don't want to end up back in prison.
Mm.
And He gave me the gift of personal development.
Mm.
And why I
Talk
say
about
it's a gift, it is something that I practice to this day. I started when
it.
I
Okay.
was in prison doing affirmations. I know affirmations are trending right now, and you hear the word all the time. But even before it was trending, I was practicing this,
Mm.
and I had to be the one to speak life into myself. I
That's a
started
fact.
seeking knowledge from people like Earl Nightingale and
Hmm.
Jim Rohn and those
Hmm.
old school guys that was giving out the jewels, and
Facts.
I immersed myself in it and I become obsessed with it. And I started to see myself bloom and transform. Like it was really magical. And once you see something working,
Keep doing it.
you have motivation to continue,
That's
right?
right.
And
That's
so
right.
you're gonna get pushback. People gonna tell you that's not who you are. Who you think you
Hmm.
are? You don't do that.
Hmm.
You the credit card
Hmm.
scamming girl. You the girl that does the
Yep.
boosting. You got the gift cards. You the plug. You the hood plug.
Yep.
People even tried to approach me, even though I
Mm.
had declared I was someone different. People would
Hmm.
approach me with street business, and I had to be the
Yep.
one to say, no, that's not me. That's not what I do.
That's a fact.
Let me
Yep.
reintroduce you to who I am.
Yo,
So I
you
hope I
said
did answer your question.
Nah, you said a bunch of powerful stuff that a couple of things real quick. Jim Rome,
Sure.
Earl Nightingale. For you guys who don't know, for the listeners who are not familiar with those individuals, Google them, check them out. Everything TJ said is valid. I still listen to those individuals to this day. Like motivational, they put you up on game, like what life is about. Like they give you real jewels that honestly, coming from the inner cities, we never taught. And so check them out, tap in. Like I let those at times, there's been times I let them play in my earbuds while I'm sleeping at night. So subconsciously I'm seeking in all of the information that they saying.
You know what's
And
up.
so you feel me? And so
You know what's up.
that's a fact. That's why I got goosebumps literally when you said that, when you mentioned those. Another
I don't
thing,
listen to music. I don't listen to
you
music. It's very
know,
seldom that I listen to music. I don't watch television.
I don't either. I don't
I
either.
lost 5 years of my life.
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't think people understand how serious I am about my time.
Talk that.
I don't have no time to listen to Molly Percocet. Why am I listening to that? What
Yep.
subliminal message is going into my brain? Like
Yep.
everything that I expose myself to, everything that I allow to be downloaded into my mind is my responsibility. So
That's
I
a
don't
fact.
care how many people other people's rocking to it and how much hookah they got and how many bottles on deck. I'm not
Talk that.
interested.
Talk that. What
I'm
she
just
talk
not.
about is real sacrifice. That's real sacrifice. That's maximize. That's assuring the things that's coming in that you're listening, taking in is quality information. That's drowning out the noise. Like these are
Mhm.
things. If you want to be successful and change your life around, these are principles that we're both validating and telling you it worked for both of us. There's no coincidence that it worked for both of us. They're simple principles, but at the same time they're difficult to repeat and constantly do. But once you do it, I guarantee you it opens up a whole new world for you. So
Fact.
you you also you mentioned not watching TV. How do you feel about time? Like how do you maximize your time, and how have you maximized your time, especially considering personal development, like to be the best form of you?
So I'm gonna be 100% transparent. I struggle with time. I struggle
Mm,
with time management
mm,
because it's almost like I have a false sense of reality that I of how much I can really do in this day.
yep.
And so I'm always over planning and over saying I committing to things that I really don't have the capacity to hold. But I
Mm-hmm.
want to be a part of, and I want to support, and I want to show up for your baby shower, and I want
Yep.
to show up. But I also have my goals, and so for me, I started to put myself first.
That's right. That's right.
What the goals that I set for myself come first, and whatever
Love
else
that.
I have, I share with the world.
That's right.
I have to have 3 goals per week for me.
Mm, mm,
3 goals, 3 small goals per week that is in alignment with my life plan. So I have a life
love that.
plan.
Yes, yes.
And sometimes my life plan changes because I receive information and I'm
Yep.
like, it's a document that I'm always editing. But I
Phew.
take the time to plan my life because not planning my life and going with
Mm,
what other people were just doing around me landed me in prison. So if I'm
love
not
that.
intentional about what I'm doing with my time and with my life, then it's very easy to allow the noise to distract me.
Yes, indeed. Yo, you nailed that. That's. I assume that's where you would have ended up with it. And I think a lot of people struggle with their time, like you said. Even I do too. But the way you ended that is exactly how I feel too. Like I'm not. I'm got. We got to put ourselves first. We got to accomplish our goals. Then we could help other people. One of the best analogies I love is for individuals. If you've never been on an airplane before, the first thing they're gonna tell you when you get on is if we hit turbulence, the mask is gonna drop. They're gonna tell you to put the mask on yourself first before you help anybody else, including your kid, your moms, anybody. You can't
Right.
help nobody else if you can't help yourself. And so we got to be stingy in that way and put ourselves first. And then that's how we can maximize helping others. So now and we're going to kind of fast forward a little bit to,
Sure.
to more so today. What's your current title in your day job?
So I'm a program coordinator for Women Rising. I work for the Fortune Society. The Fortune
Yep.
Society is an organization that builds people and not prisons. That is the mission
Mm,
statement of the organization.
mm,
We have over 600 employees based in New York City, comprehensive services in reentry, workforce development, mental health support, substance abuse, creative arts department. They serve 3 meals a day, free
mm,
coffee, free tea.
mm,
There's a nurse on staff. I can't even. We have supportive housing. There's so much that the
mm,
Fortune Society does. I myself was looking for resources when I came out of prison. I knew
mm,
like something is wrong. I need some help here. So what I did was found mental health support, found all the support that I needed. One of the things I did was enroll myself in the Fortune Society, and
mm,
I was able to take a workforce development workshop, which changed
mm.
my life. Taught me how to really sit down and get a job, really learn interviewing and resume writing skills. For me, I think that's important to learn before I get out. I should have been exposed to that information before I was released. I think it
Facts.
would have
Facts.
saved me a lot of time,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not my story. That's not how it happened. However, I now am a program coordinator for that same program geared towards women. So
Love
they
that.
got funding for a program in workforce development and asked me if I wanted to
Mm,
assume the role. I'd
mm.
been hired as a Rikers Island facilitator, a jail based facilitator. We lost the contract. And so I'm very proud of the work that I do. In the curriculum, I not only wrote the workforce development skills, but I also include a lot of communication skills, life skills. There's some cognitive restructuring. I even show some videos from those guys that I mentioned earlier in the
Yes.
program. The
Yes.
program is 3 weeks long. And if they're interested, they do another week of entrepreneurship. If interested, it's optional. And when I tell you, the women are so thankful when they
Mm.
graduate. They're like, this workshop changed my life. And
Yep.
it's affirming that to know that my work matters, right? These
Right.
are the things that I wish I would have gotten when I got out. And so I'm able to construct this program in a way that is effective for the
I
population that I serve.
That is, I love it. So one thing for you guys that don't know, we both, that's something that we have very common thread. We're both involved in workforce development. We're both supporting individuals coming home from incarceration in that way. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think workforce development is a part of personal development, and one thing we all need when we come home is going to be a job. Like, we need to be able to make some sort of income, or start our own business, like they also teach there. And but the things, again, we've historically, a lot of us end up incarcerated either at a young age, and so we have very limited work history, or for those who might have had a job or two, we really still don't know how corporate America works. And so, through workforce development programs, it's important that we take them seriously. Try to learn as much as we possibly can. And there is a resource out there for you guys tapping in. It's called Honest Jobs. Check it out if you have your tablets, and you
I
could
just
go on
met
there. You could,
Harley the other day.
yeah, Harley's my guy. Harley's actually going to be on the show, I think next month. And so,
Look at that. Look at
look at, right. Another someone formerly incarcerated who now doing their thing. But that's a great resource because you can actually start building your resume out. You could actually start applying for jobs while you're incarcerated, and just start to build yourself up for that release. So you're not behind the eight ball like me and you were, when we were first getting out. And so now, you said you've mentioned quite a few times mentors. And so oftentimes I get asked from individuals, how do you find mentors? What kind of advice do you give to the individuals you work with on finding mentors, and working with mentors?
So for me, your mentor doesn't have to be someone you know personally.
Talk that.
Coach Stormy Wellington is a woman I never met. She changed my life. I'm gonna meet her soon, one day, but I haven't met her yet.
Mm-hmm.
And
Affirmation,
she
yeah.
used to that
Mm-hmm.
part.
Mm-hmm.
She used to talk in a way that spoke to my heart. Like
Yeah.
she would talk in a way that the language was just something that moved me. She would say, "You care about yourself, but you got that stuff on your teeth, and
Mm,
you just looking
mm,
at it every day. You're not gonna get a cleaning.
mm.
So you really gonna put your mouth on that fork that looks like that?" So it was small things like that that was like, you know what? If you value yourself, you're not gonna
Right.
stand for certain things.
That's a
And that was
fact.
the message that I got from her, and I started to implement those things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, with me implementing the things that I knew I needed to change, I started to also research more of that content. One of the things that I
Mm.
suffered from a lot was confidence. And the
Mm.
reason why I suffered from confidence was because I didn't have the information. Most people lack confidence
Right.
when they don't fit in the space.
That's right.
And so I started to get the information that I needed in the areas that I needed to work on. And then eventually I attracted real mentors, people
Mm-hmm.
that now
Mm-hmm.
wanted to mentor me because they saw the work I already was investing in myself.
That's right.
In addition to people who've been in my life, who I always had access to, but was embarrassed because of my incarceration. A lot of times, incarceration can breed shame. And so,
Mm.
people who've been looking for
Mm.
me, family members that had no idea what had happened to me, I was able to connect with them once I built my confidence. I was able
That's
to
right.
boldly say, yes, I was incarcerated. Yes, I had some mistakes I
Yes.
made in my life. This is who I
Yes.
am. But I'm also a wonderful individual. I'm incredible. I
Talk
believe
that.
in myself. I'm doing amazing work. I'm an author. I'm a this. I'm a that.
Yep.
And I was able to earn the respect of those individuals who then also want to
Yes.
continue to mentor me.
That's
Right.
right.
So mentorship is needed in any stage.
Mm-hmm.
There's no arrival.
Mm-hmm.
There's no I'm
Nope.
here now. I'm healed. I'm done with this. No,
Nope.
I still have mentors. The
That's right.
president of the United States has an advisor. That's a job.
Talk that.
People hire consultants.
That's
You
right.
cannot be in your own head and think that you're going to win. That's
That's
impossible.
a,
So, if someone asked me when they asked that Jay-Z question, would you prefer a conversation with Jay-Z over the 500,000? Or I think it was something like that. No,
dinner.
I
Dinner
wouldn't
with Jay
do
Z. It
that.
was dinner. It was dinner. Dinner with Jay
Dinner
Z, or
with Jay Z.
500,000.
I would go for the dinner with Jay Z for dinner with Jay Z once a week for 3 years.
I'm with
I
you
would take over 500,000.
every time. Every time. I agree. You know, you said something. I say, you said the president has a counselor. I always tell people a wise king seeks counsel. So why wouldn't we have individuals that we seek counsel from who's already done it? Um,
Yes.
quick, quick little story about I have a mentor, right? And to your point, you don't always got to know your mentor, or they don't got to know they're your mentor. So when I
Right.
first started my business, there was this gentleman who's also previously incarcerated. He owns the biggest shredding company in the Northeast, valued at $2 billion. So I reached out to him and I said, you know, I want to do what you're doing in business. I would love for you to mentor me if you had some time. Obviously, he said no. He's not no, but he's a busy individual. He couldn't commit himself to that. But he said, here's my email address. So to me, what I heard was, yes, here's my email address. Reach out whenever you need something, right? And so that's exactly what I've done. And so this was in 2016. Now, fast forward to 2024. Yesterday was the first time I got his phone number. He reached out to me on LinkedIn and sent me his phone number for the first time yesterday after giving me advice for years via email or on LinkedIn. And so again,
Kudos to
don't
you.
right. Don't accept
Feels
no.
good.
It
That
feels
feels
great.
good.
I was so
You earned
excited. I
that.
can,
You earned that
you would
spot.
you would have thought I won that dinner with Jay Z. Like I came home, I was like, "Yo, you won't believe this, babe." I'm showing my wife. Like he finally sent me his number, and so but so you know when finding mentors, I also like the fact that you know you mentors can be individuals you don't know. For me, some of the best mentors I ever had came in the form of books, and so I like to always encourage people. You know, we walk by libraries all the time. That's one of the most underutilized resource that we have in our areas. And
You heard
inside,
what they say.
what's that?
You want to hide something from a black person, put it in a
Put
book.
it in the book. That's a fact. That's a fact. But those
Sorry,
books are filled with so many jewels, right? And for me, I find that I've had a lot of mentors that I've never met. I just finished reading Charlemagne's last book. A lot of great jewels I pulled from that. Like that's a mentor for me. I was able to learn some things. And so, you know, even though you don't know the person, you can still learn a lot from them. And we all need mentors, like TJ said. Like it never stops. And my biggest advice is don't take advice from someone who hasn't done it though. Like make sure the mentor that you found is actually accredited. They've actually done the work that you're trying to do. And then listen to that person. But don't let it be your homie who just trying to tell you what they think they know. Like, nah, make sure you seek out someone who's actually done it. And so,
To your point, I do want to say one thing.
mhm, yep.
For folks that's incarcerated, it's like it's very hard to accept that you need someone, right? Or you
Mm,
should listen to someone. When I
mm,
was coming out of prison, it was the reason why I started looking for mentorship online is because I really didn't want to listen to what nobody else had to tell me.
that's
Because
real.
you coming from an environment where the CEOs are telling you what to do is very controlled,
Mm,
and you just don't want to listen to nobody else.
I can see that.
But had I had someone to just open up my mind and say, listen, this is not that,
Hmm.
right? In every stage of life, you're going to have to listen to somebody. You're going to
Facts.
have to follow some directions. You're going to have
Facts.
to seek guidance to get to the next level.
Yep.
And once I understood that, it was a game changer for me. But it
You're
was
right.
hard.
You're
It's
right.
hard.
I'm happy you said that. We gotta let go and we gotta accept that no matter what, you're always gonna have to listen to someone, like TJ said. And so you might as well choose the person you want to listen to instead of it
Right.
being someone that's chosen to make you listen to them, you know? And so one thing I wanted to ask you, especially being in the
Mhm.
space of workforce development, is like what advice do you have for other folks that are coming home from jail, um, or who have a criminal record? Maybe they're already home and they aspire to, you know, build themselves up and have a successful career like you've done for yourself.
So a few things. Educate. We are living in a time of education. I mean, excuse
That's
me,
right.
information.
That's right.
Information is extremely easy to access. Your phone is a
Mhm.
computer. So I would say
Mm,
apprise yourself on the policy of wherever you live in terms of, like in New York City, we have ban the box. Then we
yep.
have fair chance analysis, right? There is protocol for a job to inquire on whether or not you have a record. If you
Yep.
don't have that information, it's easy for you to be discriminated against because you don't know your rights.
So
So
true.
the first thing I would say, and we do this at Fortune, is teach yourself or find a program where you can learn your rights in the state that you
Right.
live in.
That's
The
right.
second thing I would do is Most people in prison have gift the gab, right? We are a community that can make anything happen.
That's a fact.
Don't be afraid to use those skills in a different realm.
Hmm.
You do have to have a different delivery. The rules are different, but that
Right.
gift of gab, if you have it, you can utilize that on an interview. There's a protocol. There are templates online. You can go to YouTube. You can get books if you're still in. If you're out, you know what I'm saying. Get the information that you need, whether it's through a third party or you teaching it to yourself.
Facts.
Another thing is the resume writing process.
Mm.
You did jobs in prison. You have skills that you might not know how to package and identify.
Yep.
And so you don't have to say, I've never had a job. You don't need to tell them where you did this job, right?
Yep.
You put the town on your resume. You put the dates where you worked. If you worked in the kitchen for as a cook, that is experience as a
That's
cook.
a
And you
fact.
could also
That's a
probably
fact.
do that in any institution,
Hmm.
right? If
Hmm.
you were a laundry person, if you were an education person, if you
Yep.
whatever you did while you were in prison with your time, most prisons is mandatory to work. Put that
Facts.
on your resume. Also, you have references. When
Mm.
you have programs that you engage with, like the Fortune Society, a lot of times parole officers can be a reference if you have a good relationship with the person.
Yep.
Think outside of the box, right? You are in a position where you have no choice but to win.
Mm.
If
Mm.
you get a door closed in your face, how many times you heard doors slam behind the wall? You can't be
Mm.
intimidated by failure or what you might perceive as failure just because someone told you no, right?
That's a fact.
You can even reach out to the person that you interviewed with and say, hey, you know, I understand that you decided to go with someone else. Is it possible that you could give me some tips on how I
Very
can
true.
improve my interviewing, right?
Very true. Yep.
Find feedback from everyone and anywhere and everywhere. Be open and receptive. You can also do mock interviews. You watch how the
Hmm.
interview process works on YouTube because I'm sure
Yep.
there's content around that. And then
Yep.
you go and you say, hey, someone that you know that works somewhere who might conduct interviews or might be a boss that you might be connected to. Can you interview me? Can I practice with you?
Yep.
Right? There's several things
Yes.
that you could do to get yourself to be ready for the workforce.
I agree. You said some stuff. One of the things I always tell, like, so me and my wife, my kids, we recently went to Montreal. Out there, they speak French, and then earlier in the year we were also in Mexico. And so I tell my wife and my kids, I really don't like going places where I can't speak the language because communication is my superpower, like you just said. And
I
I
love that.
identified that later on in life, but I know that's my superpower. And so my superpower gets neutralized when I can't use it in the
Use
way that I
it.
like to use it.
That
Right.
makes sense.
It's and then the other thing that I love that you said, transferable skills. When I came home from jail, at one point I couldn't get a job as a general manager because they said I didn't have sales experience. But I sold drugs. So obviously I had sales experience, right?
A lot
And
of
so
sales experience.
you feel me? And so but I didn't know how to communicate that in those rooms. Like you were just saying, there are ways. Now that I look back at it, I could have communicated that in those rooms. I could have let it be known that I had sales experience and packaged it up a different in some way that they would have been able to understand that. And so we
Independent
all have
sales.
right, right. You feel me? And so I agree with you wholeheartedly. Now, let's say you got the job though. You're in the job, and one of the things that I like to teach a lot of our people coming home and justice impacted and like I like to say, historically underemployed individuals, is the fact that once you got the job, the work really shouldn't stop then. In my opinion, that's when it just starts. Like
Mhm.
because you should look at a in my opinion, you should look at the company's organizational chart and identify where you want to be on that chart and figure out a roadmap that can help you get there. And that roadmap should include any kind of skills you need to acquire to get you there. Once you have that roadmap, it's going to tell you exactly what you got to do to be the next CEO, the next executive, or just like you starting a business, that's basically your business plan on how to get you to that end goal. But the one thing we can't do is make
100%.
excuses. The one thing we can't do is quit. And the one thing we can't do is blame it on we got a record because there's too many of us out here who got those same barriers ahead of them, but we've been
Make it
able to get
happen.
past it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
It's
And
all
so,
about your determination.
agreed. I agree wholeheartedly. And we could be and so no, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. So I got a question. This is a question I like to ask all of the guests. This particular question is, what advice would you give the 25 for you, let's even say the 20-year-old um the 20-year-old you, what advice would you give looking back today to coach them to speed up their success?
The 20-year-old me, you are not you are not a product of your circumstances.
Mm, mm,
You have the power to do whatever it is that you desire.
mm.
Lean into the voices that tell you the things that you should hear, not the things
That's
that
right.
you want to hear.
I love
Shy away from being comfortable.
that. Mm, mm.
Comfort usually breeds laziness.
Talk that.
You're not going to have the capacity that you have now to work at the speed that you can work at.
Mm,
Take advantage of that. The older you get, your capacity will diminish.
yeah.
Take care of your body,
Mm,
forgive yourself, make sure that you know that it's okay to make mistakes,
mm,
learn from your mistakes. Your
mm.
past is your school, and find great mentors.
Fine, great man.
Mentorship
I love
is
I
everything.
love your past is your school. I don't even know if I ever heard that one before, but I absolutely love that. That's fire.
No, I made that up.
That's fire.
That's my quote.
We got a copy. You got a copy. That's a trade. You got a trademark
I
copyright
know,
that
right?
one. That's fire. That's fire.
Thank you.
So look, TJ, I like to try to keep it within 45 minutes.
No problem.
And so I appreciate you coming today. I appreciate the jewels you spit. One or two things I would like you to do before you leave. One, can you talk a
Mhm.
little bit about your book, where you can find it?
Sure, tjvulcain.com. Vulcain is spelled Vulcain. My book is also on Amazon as well as Barnes and Nobles, but no shade to Jeff Bezos. You want to cut out the middleman. If you know an author
Yes,
personally, just grab the book from them yourself. But I am
that's
available
right.
on those platforms.
And now, can you tell us a little bit about the docu series that you're in, also, and where people could find that?
So the docuseries has not been released to the public. Right now, if you want to
Okay,
see it, you would have to attend a private screening. But
got
there's
you.
information online, preschool to prison doc on Instagram, preschool to prison.com is a website. If you're interested in setting up a screening or even trying to have an event collaborating with the filmmaker, Dr. K and Edwin are the filmmakers. They're extremely open and inviting when it comes to doing work in the community. And you asked me what it's about. It's basically, I think I mentioned a little bit about it before,
Hmm.
but talking about the injustices of the educational system and really trying to change policy and trying to convince lawmakers to advocate for our children, right? A lot of times the educational systems deals with kids that have challenges in a punitive way. We're
Hmm.
looking to replace that with mental health support and
Yep,
mentorship and really trying to help these children navigate their challenges that they're having at that time rather than put them in institutions.
that's right.
That's what the
Well, I think
documentary is raising awareness for. Sorry.
I love the fact I love that you found that documentary, or it found you, because if after hearing your story, it definitely feels like it's in perfect alignment with what you've been through. And I'm sure you're super passionate about the work that you're doing in that space. Um, One last thing I want to ask you is, can you tell the people, uh, especially for those individuals who might be returning to like the New York City area, how they can get in contact with the oh man, the what's the name? Fortune
The
Society.
Fortune
Excuse me.
Society?
Yeah,
Oh, the
yeah.
Fortune Society is, you could just look it up online. We have a few locations. The one I work at is in Long Island City,
Gotcha.
uh 2936 Northern Boulevard. 2936
Mm,
Northern Boulevard, I think, is the address. But it's on Google. It's in Long Island City. We, as I said, so many services we offer. You can ask for
mm-hmm.
me. You would say TJ or Tiffany. Tiffany, probably. if you're coming into fortune. And I'm happy to welcome you in, open arms, and point you in the direction that you need to go. And also, you had another question?
Um, no, I mean the only other last question I would have had for you is if you could reiterate where people could find you at.
Oh, so I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on TikTok, and I'm also on Instagram at TJ Vulcain. Vulcain.
Perfect. And so, is there any last thoughts? Anything you want to just leave the audience with? A jewel, a nugget, a quote, anything that you just want to leave them with before we log off?
Um, yeah. Having a checkered past has nothing to do with having a glorious future.
Mm,
Being incarcerated is not the end all be all. It is an extremely traumatic experience. It's something I personally know that will always be a part of me. It doesn't matter how many years I've been out of prison. It is important to note that your triggers are your responsibility.
hmm
Sometimes when we come out of incarceration, we expect the world to tiptoe around us and understand us when really it's up to us to learn how to properly communicate.
Yeah,
And so I'm not trying to discourage anyone, but I also want to keep it real. You could do it, but with hard work and dedication.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. It's gonna definitely take you some hard work, some dedication. It's not easy to get to where we are, but it's possible. And that's the most important thing, that you know that you can achieve it. I always like to leave with just one closing thing that I like to share. And, for me is I always like to tell everyone listening, you got greatness in you. Like Les Brown always says, there's greatness in each and every one of us. We all have a superpower. Figure out your superpower, pull that greatness out of you, and know that you can accomplish anything that you want to. And so
I
with
love
that,
Les Brown.
that's my
Y'all
guy,
gotta
right?
check out
That's
Les
my guy.
Brown too. Make sure y'all listen to Les Brown.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Another great one. And so,
Yeah,
with that, we want to thank you for tuning in today. I know you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and so we appreciate that. And want to thank TJ for
honored.
tapping in, sharing her story, dropping some jewels, and definitely tap in with her. Follow her, check her out online. Like she said, reach out. You got some individuals out here who want to help you see you win. And so, with that, until the next episode, thanks for tuning
Bye.
in.